Hi, everybody. Welcome to A Mighty Blaze. I'm Jenna Blum, one of the co-founders of The Blaze, and I am so excited. I cannot even deal with myself right now. I am so excited to welcome Hank Phillippi Ryan. Finally, we've been waiting for you to come on and host your first Mighty Mystery, and she is here today with TJ Newman, whose book Falling is taking the whole world by storm. You've seen it everywhere. There it is. Yes, thank you. Everybody smile hugely, as this book deserves. It sounds so fantastic, and we're so excited to have you both with us today. I'm just going to say a couple of words about The Blaze to welcome any newcomers. If you are returning to The Blaze, first of all, thank you. Welcome back. We know you're as excited as we are. If you're new to The Blaze, we are a team of 37 creative volunteers as of this week, dedicated to helping connect writers and readers on a virtual platform we started in March 2020 because of COVID. And we're just going to keep doing this so we can reach all of you every week in myriad ways. If you like what you see here today, please give us a like or a follow on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. We are ubiquitous. Please consider signing up for our newsletter at www.mightyblaze.com so that you'll never have literary FOMO ever again. It's a very dangerous condition. Nobody likes it. So that is The Blaze. Welcome, Hank. Who does not know Hank? Hank is all the things to all the people, but I am going to read your official bio for those of you who may have been hiding under a rock in a cave somewhere underwater and have not yet heard of Hank. So here is Hank's official introduction. Hank Phillippi Ryan is the USA Today bestselling author of 13 novels of suspense. You have won multiple prestigious awards for your crime fiction, including 5 Agathas, 4 Anthonys, and the coveted Mary Higgins Clark Award. And as the daughter of a newsman, I have to say my favorite thing about you, Hank, is that you have won 37 Emmys. How does that even happen? For your investigative journalism with WHDH and Channel 7 in Boston, Hometown Girl, Holla. Hank's novels have been named Bestsellers of the Year by Library Journal, New York Post, BookBub, Pop Sugar, Real Simple Magazine, and more. Your 2019 book is the legal thriller The Murder List, which won the Anthony Award for Best Novel of the Year. And your latest book is The First to Lie, which is a standalone starred review from Publishers Weekly, nominated for the Anthony, the Mary Higgins Clark, and y'all tune in here in September for Her Perfect Life, which is Hank's book coming out. And we are going to carry her around on our shoulders on The Blaze and make the biggest freaking deal out of it, as she deserves. We cannot wait. We are so happy to have you with us hosting our Mighty Mystery series. Welcome. Welcome.
Jenna, I am blushing. I am absolutely blushing. This is so much fun. And to see you here and to see TJ here, who is brave enough. I mean, this is a brave woman anyway, but brave enough to manage this debut for A Mighty Mystery is just fantastic. I hope I get through this without crying because because this is wonderful. And what you have done with The Mighty Blaze over the past more than a year has changed people's lives. It's helped us stay connected. You've made an amazing community of readers and writers and, the discoverability of books, and you've kept us together every day, engaged and talking and in conversation. And, you've just made our minds be full. So we are so grateful to you, all of us who have been fans of A Mighty Blaze for so long. And look at the comments coming in. Tori Eldridge is here, and Kate O'Malley Murphy is here, and Karen Belovich is here, and Gail Rosenfeld. It's, the gang's all here, and it is great. And thank you.
So welcome. I'm going to jump off. Hi, Edwin. I see you. Edwin Hill is here as well.
Oh,
Hank, welcome to the family. Now you're in. You will never get out. You're Blazer forever. And you too, TJ. And you ladies have a wonderful discussion. I hope you both cry. It's my favorite thing. Journalists crying, authors crying, my favorite thing, because you know that you've been really moved. We can't wait to see your discussion. So have fun, ladies. Take it away.
Thank you, Jenna. I love talking about crying. It's so funny because one of the first lines of one of my books is, "It's never a good thing when the flight attendant is crying." And that's got to be true, Tori, right? So we promise we will not cry today from anything but happiness. TJ Newman is here with us today. If you hear me call her Tori, that's her real name, but I'm calling her TJ today because she is the author of the unbelievable book of the summer, the buzziest bestseller that you have ever read in your life. I will tell you so quickly because I want you to talk, TJ, but I read on my treadmill. And my husband came up a couple of weeks ago and said, "You have been on here for more than an hour. What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm reading this book and I cannot put it down." So you have helped my general physical well-being as well as my summer reading fun. Quickly, 2 pieces of housekeeping. One, we're having a giveaway today of TJ Newman's book, Falling. So all you have to do, Blazers, is leave a comment or a question or anything you want. Yay, I love this book. Ask TJ a question, anything you like, in the comments while we're live. And the random prize winning picker in the back will select a winner at the end of the broadcast. I want to welcome Tom, the producer, and Hannah Murphy, who is making sure that TJ and I see all of your comments. We're, as Jenna said, it's a family, and we welcome you today. Tori, TJ, are you just floating without a plane right now? Can you believe what's happened to you? The Good Morning America pick for
Yeah, I'm floating without a plane is the perfect description for it. And I'm sitting here and I'm watching that intro and I'm speaking with you, Hank, and I'm looking at your background at the little, just the tiny amount of hardware in your background. And I'm just like, how is this happening? How is this real life? It's just none of this feels real. And I feel so blessed and fortunate. So thank you so much for all of this. This is incredible.
Oh, our complete pleasure. And I'll tell you, talking about backgrounds, TJ, you are in a hotel in Chicago as part of your whirlwind tour for Falling. What's that like now, just asking for a friend, what's it like being on tour with a blockbuster book of the summer? How are you being received? Are people coming to your events? What are people saying to you?
It's been the most amazing week of my entire life. And we've done in-person hybrid events now in Chicago, New York, and Phoenix. And I'm telling you, the bookstores are ready and the readers are ready. Everybody came out and everybody at every one of the events just said, "Oh, it feels so good to be together and to be at an event at a bookstore." I think, it's been a long, hard last 16 months. And I think we're finally sort of tiptoeing into something that feels like a little bit more normal in the book world. And it's been really cool also to do these hybrid events. Like, you are in Boston, I'm in Chicago. This wouldn't have been possible. So I hope that this keeps going forward too, these types of events, so that we can make amazing connections, like, that is the mission of A Mighty Blaze, that keep that and then add it to the in-person. And it's just, I feel like the future's bright for where we're going from here.
That's such a wonderfully optimistic way of looking at the world. And it's interesting because I can't decide which is more interesting, Falling or your own personal story. So I want to talk a little bit about both of those today. But you first, you talk about your sort of optimistic look at the world. You've taken longer to be an overnight sensation than anybody that I've ever heard, and it's just been glorious. Tell us, you started out as an actor.
I did, yeah. It's so funny whenever anybody says like overnight sensation, I'm like, that was a really long night. That was a really long night. I started off, I got a degree in musical theater, and then I moved to New York, what you do with a degree in musical theater. And I started, doing the whole starving artist, trying to fulfill my dreams of being on Broadway routine. And I did that for a few years and received nothing but failure and nothing but rejection. And so after a few years of that, I, put up the white flag and I moved back home to Phoenix, which is where I'm from. And I moved back in with my parents. And then I did the whole, I'm in my mid-20s, back living at home in my childhood bedroom. What do I do with my life now route for a while, which is, also just a real, life learning experience to be, go through that season of life. it was then that I got a job at Changing Hands, an independent bookstore in Phoenix. And that was kind of when, the next step in this weird path to get to this point started, when I was surrounded by books every day, talking about books with people that loved books and loved stories and wanted to talk about stories. And it was there that my dream, my lifelong dream of being a writer really turned into a concrete goal.
Had you wanted to be a writer when you were a kid? Did you? What's your favorite book, and what were you thinking about being a writer?
Yeah, I've been a lifelong reader, a lifelong writer. Ever since I got my first library card, and I can, remember checking out just stacks from the library. As a kid, when I would get in trouble, my parents would, take my books. That was my punishment, So what book, like I can remember, I don't remember the first time I thought I want to be a writer, but I remember very clearly the first time that I realized the power that literature could have on you. And it was young. I was reading Where the Red Fern Grows. And I just remember lying on the floor of my bedroom, sobbing. I mean, just sobbing hysterically at that story. And I'm a crier, but I was, it really got me. And I can remember laying there just like in a puddle of tears and just having this understanding come over me of, oh my God, this is magic. Like, this is magic. I literally just read words on a page and it's making me feel like this. And I think that was the first time that I sort of made that connection of the power of the written word in the world of fiction and what it can do to you.
And it happened to me with Black Beauty, exactly the same thing. I remember I was reading like you at the library all the time and bringing books home. And I would read one after the other very quickly until I read Black Beauty, and then I closed it and went to pick up another one. I remember this so clearly. And then I thought, wait a minute. I need to think about this for a minute. I'm still crying over Black Beauty. And I remember thinking, there's more to this than a story. That was what went through my mind. I remember this, that there was a theme and there was a meaning and there was more than just a story of a horse. And those moments are life-changing, I think, for people who think about books. So fast forwarding, so you're in the bookstore and you're looking at these books and this idea of that you could write a book, which is a kind of crazy idea, begins really to crystallize. Is that what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember when I used to shelve a book that was written by an author with my last name, with the last name Newman. I used to take my thumb and I would cover the first name, the author's first name, as I shelved it. And I would just like sort of pretend that it was my book that I was shelving. It was just, when I was in New York, I put myself out there so publicly of, I have dreams and I'm creative and artistic and this is what I want to do. And it was such a crash and burn experience that I really did get burned. And I turned creatively and artistically inside. I became very creatively introverted because I think as a creative person, as an artistic person, you realize like that's never going to go away. Even if I moved from New York, like my creative impulses and my desire to express myself through artistic means was never going to go away. And when I got to the bookstore, when I got back home and to the bookstore is when it became an opportunity for me to be creative and express myself and to feel these things that we're talking about, that stories make you feel in a safe way. So that's when I started writing in a far more disciplined kind of way. And I've written my whole life, just for fun, just for me. Like I said, like I've always wanted to be a writer, but I was pursuing theater, that's what I was going for. But my time in Changing Hands was when it was like, no, I want to pursue this in a far more realistic and practical and tangible way.
Yeah, because publishing is realistic and practical and tangible. That is, I've got to tell you, TJ, as you well know now, that that is not very practical. And you did something else at the same time, which I just think is at that point, which is astonishing, which you decided to become a flight attendant.
Yeah.
And to me, being a flight attendant it's like saying, I've just decided to go be a doctor. I mean, it's difficult. It has a lot of responsibility. You have to know so many things. There's so much training. Why did you decide to become a flight attendant?
Well, it's the family business, as we call it. My mom was a flight attendant, and my sister was a flight attendant as well. So I grew up in the industry, and I grew up knowing the benefits of the job, the schedule, and the travel benefits. And I knew that if I flew, I would still have time to be able to do my creative work that I wanted to do. So it was kind of my cheating way of getting the best of both worlds. So I left the bookstore to be a flight attendant because it was just an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And I moved to San Francisco and went to training, and then did that for 10 years. And I only put my notice in after I got a book deal.
So this story is just so astonishing. I told you all, when I look over here, I'm looking at the comments. I told you all that TJ's story is just as compelling as the book itself, and we'll talk about falling in just a minute. So, but you wrote this book while you were working as a flight attendant. How did you juggle that?
I worked a lot of red eyes. That's how I did it primarily. Red eyes are my favorite flights. I love them. Working favorite flights, although I like them as a passenger too. But working, they were my favorite flights because they're quiet. They're quiet and they're calm. And once everybody, once we got in the air and I took care of everybody and everybody went to sleep, then I was kind of left to my own devices. So I usually worked up in first class, which meant that I had the forward galley all to myself. So once everybody went to sleep, like I said, I would just stand up there and I would write. And I would, we weren't allowed to have portable electronic devices out at that time. So I would write everything by hand. So I would usually write on the back of like the passenger manifest or a catering bill or something like that. And I would write, by hand, and it helped me stay awake, and I would just drink coffee and write this book.
So it was this book you were working on? It was Falling that you remember? We're giving away a copy today, so leave a question or a comment in the comments. It was this book you were working on?
It was that book. Once I had the idea for this book, it just latched on, and I knew I wouldn't be able to rest until I knew what happened to these characters and what the end of this story was.
But the beginning of the story, quickly, I mean, there is this, I've been on way too many red eyes. I can say that I don't embrace them as much as you do, but I will try with your suggestions. There is a feeling on a red eye. There's this, there's this peace. There's an atmosphere on a red eye of just quiet and sort of safety. But where did your idea for Falling come from?
Absolutely. And I love that you say that. And I also think of red eyes like it's like a big sleepover. It's something that you would never do with, 150 strangers, like sit in a chair and go to sleep. So there's a certain amount of just, I don't know, it's kind of a special experience. I realize I'm waxing romantic about red eyes, which if you've ever taken a red eye is like, really? Wow, you really are optimistic. That's kind of insane, but that's how I feel. But the idea for this book came to me actually when I was working a red eye, and I was working a red eye from LA to New York, which is the flight that the story in the book takes. And I was standing at the front of the cabin, and I was looking out at the passengers who were all asleep, and it's quiet. And it's dark and it's cold, it's red eye. And I have this thought that their lives and my life and the lives of my crewmates and all of our lives are solely in the hands of the pilots who are flying the plane. And it was the first time that I'd kind of also considered the flip side of that bargain, which is that with that much power and responsibility, how vulnerable does that make the pilots? And it was a thought that I just couldn't shake. And so a few days later, I was working a different trip with a different set of pilots. And one of the days of the trip, I threw out to the captain that I was with, I just said to him, hey, what would you do if, I don't know, your family was kidnapped and you were told that if you didn't crash the plane, they would be killed? What would you do? And the look on his face told me everything. He was terrified because he didn't have an answer.
Yeah.
And
There's nothing in the manual about that.
Exactly. When I made that connection, when I saw his face and saw how sincerely afraid he was, and I made that connection that, wait, there isn't an answer to that question. That was the moment that I knew I had a book to write. And yeah, that's it.
I have to say though, if I had been the pilot, I would have said, TJ, are you sure everything is okay? You know what? Why are you asking me this? It is kind of an odd question.
It is an odd question, but I do have to say that I realize now, after like enough of, this book has been in the public eye long enough that I've gotten enough reactions like that I now fully understand that most people, the general public, don't think in terms like this. So it is kind of weird. But I have to say, for pilots and flight attendants, like, we are trained to think this way. We are constantly looking at worst case scenarios and troubleshooting what we would do. It's how we're trained to think. We spend a tremendous amount of time studying accidents and incidents, prior accidents and incidents, and studying, what did the crew do right? What did they do wrong? What were the contributing factors? If I was to ever be in a situation like this, how would I react? It's sort of like a constant dress rehearsal mentality, so that if we ever encounter something, we're prepared. So when I came up with the concept for this book, it really kind of just felt like a more heightened and dramatic version of sort of just some of the regular troubleshooting I would be doing anyway.
And that works so beautifully in the book, because writing a book is sort of the same thing, figuring out scenarios and problems and solutions. And when you write yourself into a corner, how do you get out of that? And what would people do? And what are people's motivations? And how, when you have a problem that seems to have only two solutions, there may be more than two solutions, but it may not feel that way. Exactly. At the time. So I was going back to when you were talking about being an actor, and you wanted to be on Broadway. And now, didn't I see a video of your name in lights over Times Square?
Yeah, you did. Good Morning America had my book up there, and I put something on my Instagram profile about this, but I can't get over that moment, because when I left New York, I really did leave that dream of, ever seeing my name up in lights in Times Square. That was, what I wanted. And it was my time in New York was hard. I love New York City. I put all my layovers there. I love it. But my time there also was always bittersweet, because it had been a lot of rejection when I was there. So to be back in New York and to have to be there for a reason in which I had been successful at something meant more to me than just about anything ever has.
I'm sure your feet were not touching the ground. That's just such a great and memorable moment. It's fantastic. So then, speaking of great and memorable moments. So then I pick up the New York Times, and there is this article, a huge story about you. This is before the book even came out, which is incredible. And then I see this in the New York Times book review, which is just about as fantastic as anything could possibly be. I want to talk about all these things to you, but I do want to read to the readers. And remember, we're giving this book away, and we have lots of questions. So I want to make sure we get them, and we will. So listen to the back, you all. Listen to the back. It says, and now you know where TJ's idea came from. So now going to see how it's translated into the book. You just boarded a flight to New York. There are 143 other passengers aboard. What you don't know is that 30 minutes before the flight, your pilot's family was kidnapped. For his family to live, everyone on your plane must die. The only way the family will survive is if the pilot follows his orders and crashes the plane. And then it says, enjoy the flight. That is so irresistible. Look, Mighty Blaze is saying literal goosebumps. Do you still get goosebumps when you see this, though?
Completely and totally. When I see the physical copy and when I go into a bookstore and see it on the shelf, or when someone sends me a picture of it on the shelf, like the whole thing is just insane. And when I get a text from a friend who says, "Hey, I know people who are reading it right now, not because I've told them to, because you're my friend. They're just like reading it."
Yeah.
And that's just like the fact that people are reading it and responding so positively to it. And these people are not just my friends and family who I'm convinced, because they love me. Like it's incredible. It is absolutely incredible.
Well, let's just take a look at this little ad here for a moment, which is the biggest ad I've ever seen in my entire life. And one of the people who loves this book is Lee Child. And he says, his quote here says, "Intense suspense, shocks and scares, plus chilling insider authenticity make this one very special." And I think, the authenticity, the knowledge that you bring to this book is so amazing, but it's so seamlessly woven in. How did you do that? I mean, how? But did you think about how much you know and how much is relevant, and then how much you can entertain, if that's the right word, the reader by teaching them something about how those flight systems work?
Yeah, thank you for that. It wasn't a deliberate or a conscious thing that I was doing. I look at it now after the fact, and I really was like, I flew for 10 years. So to me, when I was writing this story, it would be like, writing a story about, just something that you've done every day practically for 10 years. So I really wasn't consciously thinking, oh, now I'm going to put this insider in there. I really was just telling a story from a world that has been my world. And I think that was an accidental thing, but I think it worked out really well that it's almost like the insider aspect is background, because for me, that is background. I didn't feel like I was, it wasn't really aware to me that I was letting people into something that they weren't there. It was just kind of like, well, yeah, this is just the world, and this is how you see this world. So yeah, it's neat too, to give people that look, because aviation is one of those worlds that is so specific and so nuanced that if you're an outsider looking in, it's difficult to get the subtleties of our day-to-day life accurate unless you've been doing it for a long time. So it's been fun to give people an inside look at that world. And I have to say, like, one of the best responses I've gotten is from flight attendants who say, like, this is it. Like, finally, like this is what it's like going to work. Like it's cool to see our world actually,
because you know what's in the galley, and you know what equipment you have, and you know what rules there are, and you know what things about that plane and about the systems that the passengers will never know, or they don't care about, or it doesn't come in their bandwidth at all. They just get on the plane and fly. And there's all these moving pieces that have to happen to make that work. And it is so fascinating how your characters use your knowledge to push that story forward just so effortlessly. And so I told you I was on the treadmill for hours about it. And Gail Rosenfeld is asking, how many when I look over here, I'm looking at the comments, you all, how many airport gift shops are selling this book? Have you seen people on flights reading it?
I've been waiting. That's sort of like my last surreal moment, is to see like a passenger on a plane reading the book, which I haven't seen yet, but I have a flight tomorrow morning. So I don't know, maybe I'll see it tomorrow morning. But yeah, that's an incredible moment that I just can't believe. And it's been fun too, because on all the flights that I've been taking for this tour, I've been bringing copies to give to the crews that I fly with. So I've been giving copies to all the flight attendants and the pilots that have, flown me safely across the country for the past few days. And it's been so much fun to give them this book. And like a few of them have been like, oh, I just saw this on like our flight attendant Facebook group. Someone was just talking about this. And it's cool to see that kind of reception from the industry. It's really fun.
Well, you get that camaraderie from the book as well, how your teams work together and how there are new people and not so new people and people who are friends. And, but that's still, I mean, I was thinking about how the balance between family on the ground and the family on the plane is sort of an interesting juxtaposition of those two things.
Yeah, family was it was family and love to me are the two themes of this book. And there's the Hoffman family, from that very literal dynamic. And then there's the family of the crew. Your crewmates go from coworker to friend to family almost instantly. There is a level of trust that's inherent to the job, pretty much. Yeah. We also, we spend holidays together and late nights and early mornings and long hours, and we face difficult situations together. So there's a sort of, warrior, trench warfare mentality too that bonds you, because we go through a lot together. My event in Chicago last night, I had pilots and flight attendants, that came out to the event, which was really cool. At each of the events, there's been flight attendants and pilots who have come out. So it's family. You really are family. And then also going on the family theme, I also extend that out a little bit to the passengers. Like, waxing romantic again, but like a plane, you do become like a family. Like once that door is closed and you're moving, it's you guys for the next, however many hours that flight is. No one's coming in, no one's going out. It's you guys. And, 99.9% of the time, that's all it's going to be. You're just going to walk off the plane. But if something goes crazy, if you have a weather delay, and then you're stuck on the plane for hours, I mean, like you're in that together. It's another sort of layer of family to that, this idea that we're all in this together.
And one of the things we talk about in thrillers is one of the motivations is how far would you go to save your family? And that's what Don Winslow loved about your book as well, that you expand that to be the family of people on the plane who are suddenly bonded by some experience. As you say, sometimes it's nothing. And in falling, sometimes it is absolutely life and death. And James Patterson was talking about your book too, of all things, and who is my idol. And he says, characters that you care deeply about. And that's another thing that is the depth of your character development in this book is so terrific, because it not only takes place in the air, but on the ground. And that's a fabulous thing too, that there's this suspense in the air and suspense on the ground as well. Did the book start out to be in the air and on the ground?
It always had that dynamic to it, but the ground plot line, actually, of all the changes that I made, one of the last major changes, and I wrote over 30 drafts of this book before all was said and done. One of the last major changes that I made was to really bulk up and flesh out the ground storyline. The air storyline was always as is, and even within the air storyline, you've got your two dynamics, right? Because you have the cockpit, and then you've got, once that door is shut, you've got the back of the plane, and the communication between the two worlds is very limited. So it's almost like story viewpoint 1 and 1A, or 1A and 1B. But yeah, so the ground plotline with the FBI was a later addition that really got bulked up, which I do think helped balance the story.
Oh, sure, because you can't wait to find out what's happening in the air, and then down on the ground you get sucked into that story, and it's so relentless and fabulous. And the family dynamic that we've talked about as well is so in play on both levels. I mean, there's a lot of elements of love and relationships and trust and support and belief. There's a lot of belief in this book that really makes it, I love this. Don Winslow says it's Jaws at 35,000 feet. But it is indeed, absolutely, because of the danger. But there is much more to this book that I know your readers are seeing. You alluded to this, though, that you had a lot of drafts and a lot of changes. And I want the authors in this session today to realize that you didn't just bang out this book and hand it in and then get a big deal. Talk a little bit about that part of the journey.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Nothing could be further from the truth. I worked for a long time just to even get to draft one. And once I got to draft one, it was, as all, first drafts are, terrible. It was not great. It was,
okay.
yeah, it was not great, and it definitely needed some work, and I just got to work. I just kept going and going and going until, and I'd also never written a book that was quite like this. I'd never written such a plot focused book that was, with the intercutting back and forth. So I really had to kind of teach myself how to do this as I was doing it. And so that's why it took me so many drafts, because I think I was just trying to figure out how to do it right. And I just could tell each time it's not there, it's not there, it's not there. And so I just kept going until it felt like, okay, I think it's there.
And then, of course, when you were finished, you just gave it to your agent who just sold it instantly.
Yeah. It was all sunshine and rainbows after that, except for the part where I queried 41 separate agents who all rejected me and said, no, thank you. Except for that very painful, very long uphill little part of that journey.
I mean, I think that's important for people to know as well, that you worked on it and still this book did not sell until just the right person found it, exactly the right person found it, exactly the right person loved it. And now, TJ Newman, you are just queen of the universe with Falling, and everybody is so thrilled about this. Don't forget, we're giving away a copy, but let me ask you about the movie. Am I allowed to?
You're definitely allowed to. I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say, but you can ask.
Well, so was the movie rights were almost instantly sold. How did you hear about that, and what do you think about that?
Yeah, it was like I said, remember we did 41 rejections, 31, drafts of this. Every aspect of this process for me has been uphill and a fight and a struggle. And so when we went public, that I actually had a book deal, which to me was just, the biggest, that was it. That was, my biggest dream was just getting to publish this story. So then, as the days go by during that week, and then, my agent's saying, oh, Hollywood studios are interested and they're reading your book in Hollywood. And I'm just like,
sure.
Yeah, sure. Right, exactly. Like, okay, sure. And then, as a day goes by and he's like, yeah, they're in a bidding war for it. And I was just like, a bidding war? Like, I'm not the person who's in a bidding war for anything. I'm the beggar, right? I'm going, please. So like a bidding war, that didn't make sense. And then one day he tells me, he's like, oh, well, now we're up over 1 million. And Hank, I literally said to him, 1 million what?
Did you? That's so great.
Like it was so, this whole thing has just been so just not what I'm used to, that it really just is difficult to accept. And I can't believe there was a movie deal. I cannot believe it.
1 million what is going to be my phrase forever now. That is my favorite thing that anybody has ever said. That's really phenomenal. It's so much fun to see your journey, and I'm thinking about every step of the way. You used your skills as an actor and in the bookstore and as a flight attendant. That combination was the only thing that could have created this book. Only you could do that. Have you thought about that?
I have thought about that, and I've spent a lot of time actually thinking about how much along this journey, which was a long journey, it didn't feel like it made sense. It didn't feel like there was some grand plan that I was moving towards. It didn't feel like that at all. There was a lot of confusion and pain and, struggle, and sort of like, what am I doing? Where am I going? I'm working so hard on this, and I am pouring everything into this, and for what? And not, am I just going to work this hard for this long and just have it just live in my computer and in a drawer on my desk. And what did I study this in college for? And like, oh, I'm just flying. It's like none of it felt like there was a grand plan as it was happening. And it's only now that I'm in this incredible position of hindsight that I can look back and go, oh my God, there was a plan. Like everything was a step that was moving toward this point. And I didn't see it then. But I see it now, and everything fell into place. Everything was a piece of the puzzle that just somehow wound up in this picture. And I'm emotional, actually. Just you told me that I was going to cry. I didn't mean to. A flight attendant is now crying.
That's never a good thing, except for now, because I do think that is that brings a sense of peace, that we don't exactly know why things are happening, and we don't know what's good and bad, and it may be a step on the journey. And if we sort of are open to accepting that, then at some point we realize this is what it was all meant to be.
I couldn't agree with that more. And I think, I believed in this story, and I believed that people would be entertained by this story and would want to read this story. So I just kept moving forward, not necessarily believing in myself and that there would be, I don't know. I just kept moving forward. And I hope if anybody has taken anything from this incredible experience that I'm having, it's that if I can do this, you can do this. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anybody in the industry. I didn't have an in. I didn't have anything except for an idea and a desire to do the work. That's it. I literally bought a book called The Essential Guide to Getting Your Book Published and read it and followed the directions. I got like college level, graduate level textbooks when I felt stuck in my writing and figured out like, oh, that's why that paragraph doesn't work, and then fixed it. I literally just did the work to get here. And I hope that's something that's understood, that if I can do this, you can do this.
And probably that book will sell as many as yours will now as a result of your endorsement of this is how you did it. There's only about 1 minute, you all, to leave a comment or a question for TJ in order to be entered to win a copy of Falling. And if you don't win, you're going to go right out to an independent bookstore and buy your very own copy of this wonderful book. TJ, I want you to go back and look at the comments when we're finished with this interview, because the love for you and the enthusiasm for you and the support and excitement for you is just endless, endless, endless. And this is part of that journey too, is realizing how much you're touching people and how much you're reaching people. And this book is exactly as you say, it's incredibly entertaining. It's a page turner, it's suspenseful, it's full of great information, and it is astonishingly entertaining. And congratulations on this journey, TJ. We are so happy to be on it with you. Let me just say that. We are happy to be on it with you. And thank you for being here today.
I can't thank you enough. And I have to say that, my beginning steps in this process, like I said, were all uphill, and then all the rejection and everything. And I think I assumed that it would just kind of always be that way, that even once I got a book, it was always going to be hard and all that. And I have to say that the reception into the community and to be supported by all of the people who have gone out and gotten this book and have read this book and have taken the time and energy to watch things like our interview on the Mighty Blaze and to write a review and to say, I enjoy this book, like it has meant the world. So thank you to everyone that joined us. And thank you, Hank, for this talk. It is a true honor, and I am genuinely humbled and kind of starstruck to be in this position. So thank you.
Well, TJ, I feel the same way. So thank you very much for being here today. And thank you for making my debut here be so seamlessly, gloriously wonderful. TJ, safe travels, happy travels, much joy to you, as much joy as you bring. all of your readers. And thank you all. I'm looking at the comments now. Do go back and look at those comments because they're fantastic. I want you all to know that I'm so pleased to be here at A Mighty Blaze. We will be here at A Mighty Mystery every Thursday at 4 p.m. ET, so do not miss that. And next week we will have Samantha Downing, who is astonishing. Her book, For Your Own Good, is the most mordantly dark, gripping, sinister book ever. So you don't want to miss Samantha Downing next week on Mighty Mystery. But this week we are just overjoyed to welcome TJ Newman, whose book Falling is just, I mean, everybody's saying taking off, fasten your seatbelts, buckle up, all those kinds of airplane allusions, and well-deserved. Congratulations, TJ. And thank you all so much for joining us today.